Welcome back to another episode of FNL Fridays. I am so excited today to be here with Candice Lewis. She is one of the biggest names in bodybuilding. She's got 13 championship wins under her belt. 7 of those are Olympias. And if you're not clear with what Olympias are, it's basically the most elite bodybuilding competition in the world. 4 Arnold wins, and her most recent show, the 2018 Olympia, she took second place in figure, which is so impressive, so amazing. So congratulations to you, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's just amazing that we get to connect on this level, and I hope that everyone will take something away. Like you said, I have so many years of competing, and I'm just here to help and share my experience and my journey.
I'll give them a little background. You and I met early this year in January at the Fit Expo in LA, which you may or may not remember because it was very brief. But yeah, so I was working the show and you were doing a panel. And then we were lucky enough to run into each other again in October at the San Diego Fit Expo. So I'm super excited to connect with you because you are such a big name in the bodybuilding industry, but I really want to hear about your experience and talk a little bit about my experience as well, because they were obviously very different. I am not a pro bodybuilder or anything like that, but I want to share a lot more information about the bodybuilding industry and get your take on it, because I think for people like us, we know a lot about it because we're in that scene, but to the, average person or somebody who's never competed or doesn't know about it, it's actually like a very intricate industry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's so much to it. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about, your background with it, how you got started, a little bit more about you.
So I got started, I didn't know much about the bodybuilding world. First of all, what is it? So I had no idea. I knew it was a thing as far as seeing magazine covers with women on it and men, bodybuilder, we're always so shocked at how massive they are. So I knew it was something that you're able to do. I didn't know how or what until I was in college. Mm-hmm. I met a friend of a friend that did her first competition, and we were all invited to a dinner for her. Mm-hmm. So I was one of the people that was invited. I didn't know her directly at the time, but we were all ran in the same circle, and so she kind of showed me pictures, this is what I do. We put on color and we spray Pam on ourselves. This is 12 years ago, so totally old school. There's products for that now, not Pam. Once I met her, she kind of explained, I always love working out. I love feeling of being fit and physically exhaustion. I really love being tired in that arena as far as training. Because I ran track since I was 11, I got a scholarship to run track. And at that very moment, I had stopped running track. It was my first time since I could ever remember not being involved in some type of physical activity. Yeah, and so then I was I'm going to do it. I really want this. This is what I'm lacking in my life, something to be a part of and get me in the gym while also looking good. My part was always just that physical aspect of training that I love, not the result of looking, I want to look ripped, this. I just wanted to feel good. Yeah. So after that, it was history. So she told me, you need to do this, you need to get a trainer. I got a trainer. I trained for 6 weeks, did my first show.
In 6 weeks?
I won 6 weeks.
Oh my God.
I'm a Leo, so with that said, our personalities, a lot of us are just we just jump. We don't get, you tell us something we want to do, we're okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow. You know, with not even knowing everything about it. We're just very passionate in that way. So 6 weeks I did it. I won the first show. It was kind of oh my God, I won. But I was I didn't really train I think I should have.
Right.
And I cheated on my meal plan. I was just so naive. I really didn't know what it took. I really was blind as far as knowing exactly what you need to do to earn that reward. And I didn't, in my opinion, earn it. I know some other people were training to do that. And I think it's because of my background for training. I was already physically fit and like
True.
fit the criteria of being able to go on stage.
Yeah, and that helps a lot. But I like that you touched on the point about like kind of jumping in and having no idea really what you were in for, because, and again, like I said, your experience and mine are very different, but in the very beginning, same for me. Like when I first started training, I worked with Francine Sablon and Sandra Blackie. They were my coaches. And I remember, you know, sitting down with them and just like the things they were saying, I was like, I couldn't even comprehend like the mindset that they had. It was like, oh, like, no, you know, we don't have alcohol and like maybe a sandwich, like, but otherwise it's mostly, you know, like the greens and the chicken. And it was so far-fetched to me. Like I just had no idea what I was getting into. And for me, that ended up being like a very challenging thing. But it sounds like for you, it was almost like exciting. Like, oh, I don't even know what's going on. And like, I haven't even given 100%.
Well, you started at a different time than I did. What year did you start?
When I first hired them, it was actually 2012.
2007 was my first show.
Okay.
So yeah, at that point, we didn't know all of the like rules as far as, you know, what they already kind of knew. And these girls that you hired were on the Olympia stage and competing like that. So it was just a different time. Like my trainer was just like, eat this, eat that. Like it was just like so like, and I didn't really pay attention. Right. You know, I really didn't really do what I needed to do. Right. So I think me being naive was maybe a good thing, because maybe it didn't scare me from how intense it would become, you know, like I had to do over the years. So
yeah. And I'm really curious to hear your experience with that, because, you know, like we just said, my experience started in 2012 and it was very short-lived. I was prepping for 6 months and then I was just like, this is not for me. I'm miserable. It's like not working for me. And so I just decided to stop. But for you, I mean, you were in the industry for years, for a very long time, and very, very distinguished. So clearly, you know, you're at the very top level of the women. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you only competed in figure. Is that correct? Just the figure class?
I did do bikini in 2009 when it first came, you know, a new division. Tried it and I was like, okay, not for me. I'm a girly girl, but more of a tomboy. You know, I just didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to do, nor like be in that category. So I had a little bit too much muscle for bikini. Yeah, as far as the criteria they're looking for at that time. So I was like, I didn't have enough muscle for figure to like win and like on the bigger stage, not like a little small local show. It was totally, you know, bikini, and then I was like, okay, I'm sticking to figure.
Yeah, there's a lot of different classes in bodybuilding, and I think to someone on the outside, because these are such elite level athletes, it's almost like, not that they all look the same, because they don't, but it's like they're just all so fit and lean and muscular that I think a lot of people probably have no idea that there are so many levels. So can you shed just a little bit of light briefly on kind of the different levels of bodybuilding for women?
Yeah, so now there's 6 levels. As far as divisions, there's bikini, which I would say is like most people can be able to train, you know, 12 weeks or whatever like that to be able to compete. Little muscle on the shoulders. They're looking for more structure, more of the glam kind of stage presentation, nice glutes. And then you have, I would put wellness after that, because they will have a lot more muscle than bikini, but you're still getting that glam, the same bikini poses. What I'm hearing, they're going to be a little bit more bikini than figure structure poses, with a lot more muscle in the lower body. So upper body and lower body are totally not balanced.
And I've also heard that they're a little less lean. Is that correct? That they're not looking for the same leanness as like figure or physique?
Yeah, so the wellness is not going to be shredded legs. It's going to be like a look, you're maybe 8 weeks out for a competition. So you're not going to spread those legs, but they're going to be thick. They're going to be muscular, kind of like you see with the soccer player, you know, something, you know, a CrossFitter or something like that. They're just not getting into that lean body part. But the upper body is pretty lean because it's less muscular. And then you go to figure, which is the category that I compete in. In how I would describe it is more athletic, with a little bit more leanness to the body when you're on stage. So shredded legs, you know, glutes, they can have some tie-in. They don't want it to be too much where you're showing your muscle fibers in your legs. Upper body, nice good muscles, you know, so it just depends. Like, I think figure is one of the categories where you're like, I see so many different looks, like what are they looking for?
Right.
In my opinion, I like to look more feminine and a little bit more like bikini or figure-ish, but not like figure physique-ish. Going into a little bit more muscle, that's where you'll get your fitness, which they're muscular than figure. The posing is little slightly different, but pretty much standard figure posing, but they will do their routine. So they're going to do athletic jumps, you know, this kind of routine that you kind of see that most people think that we do, you know, but that's fitness. And then you got this, and that's, you know, way more muscle than figure, bikini. The new division, it's a lot more muscular, a lot more defined in majority of your muscle groups that you have.
Right.
So like figure, we don't really think about having biceps and triceps, but in physique, you're going to have biceps, triceps. You're going to get judged on those certain muscle groups as, you know, figure wouldn't.
Right.
And then you have your bodybuilders, you know, those are the girls that people think we all are. I mean, we are bodybuilders, but we're in a different division. So, yeah, that's kind of sums up the 6 categories. I know it's pretty fast, but, you know, sometimes it helps if you're new to kind of, you know, get a picture of everyone in different classes, and you'll be able to see the difference there.
And I think it's really important to have, you know, if you are someone who's interested in getting into bodybuilding for the first time, of having a clear idea of the differences. Because for me, I started with bikini because it's, I don't want to say like the lowest level, but in the sense it's the most approachable, right? It's kind of like an entry point for difficulty, I guess, which again, it's very challenging. I do not mean to say that it's easy, because it's not, but I think it's important to be very clear on what your body type is, what you enjoy, where your strengths naturally lie. Because for someone like you said like just bikini just wasn't a good fit for your natural body anyway, you know? So if you have really large legs or a really strong, wide upper body, you know, like whatever it is, knowing there are different classes or divisions for that, and kind of finding the one that actually makes the most sense for not only your lifestyle and what you're willing to work on, but also your actual body itself.
You're so right about that, because someone would, like for me, I love bikini. Like I would want to look like a bikini person, but my body type would not be able to get in that type of shape as far as just body structure or body DNA. My legs would not come down where they need to fit that, you know, kind of box that you need to be in. So it is really, like you said, what's your body structure, what's your body type, and then secondly, what you're willing to do. And if, you know, like say for me, I was willing to, okay, let's get more muscle. But if I wasn't willing to do that and I really wanted to do bikini, I had to really realize like, hey, you're not going to do well. You're just doing this for fun, and just know like, this is not the criteria, but do it anyway. Because that's what I tell people, like, if you don't want that much muscle, don't have that much muscle.
Right. And I think the other point that you touched on too is that I didn't really know this until after I kind of got out of prep, but there are very specific things that they're looking for. So like you said, even if you're like, and I put this in quotes, even if you look the best, right? You're the leanest, or you have the biggest glutes or whatever, if the symmetry is not there, if there's not the specific tie-in that you were, you know, talking about, like there's certain things they're looking for. And I didn't even know that until after I wasn't even prepping. Because I mean, I didn't need to, I didn't make it that far. I remember Francine had said to me when I told her my show date that I was shooting for, she was flat out right away. She was like, we'll get you on stage, but you're not going to place. She just knew, she already knew, like I just wasn't, either I wasn't ready for it, or in the sense that like I couldn't get my body to where it needed to be in that amount of time. And she knew that because she knows exactly what they're looking for bikini. So being very clear about that up front, of knowing like what you're getting yourself into, what exactly they're looking for, One of the things that I did in the beginning that Sandra Blackie had me do, she said, I want you to go to a show, which, you know, of course we should, right? We should see like what we're signing up for. And it was just another one of those eye-opening experiences because I saw everything, right? I saw the men and the women, all the different divisions, but it was like, oh, damn, like this is, I kind of was like, oh no, like this is what I'm in for. Like it was a little bit of a wake-up call for me. And again, the reason that I got into it was more of just like, oh, I want to get in better shape. And I think for someone who has that goal, entering a bodybuilding competition might be a little like far reaching if you just want to get in shape. So that was part of why I backed off.
Like you said, you wanted to get in shape, but your shape was definitely different as far as like the shape that you need to be in to compete, you know? But if you were okay, like some girls just want to, it just depends. Like I always ask the client, you know, do you want to do this to go turn pro? Do you want to do this to go to the Arnold? Do you want to just compete at your local shows? And then we kind of strategize like, hey, you might not get there, or it's going to take years to get there. Or if you just want to get in good shape and lose 10 pounds, then go for it. I always encourage people just to go for it, even if bodybuilding is something you thought you would never do. But I think everyone should experience being on stage and just having that goal to work towards as far as body transformation. Like, I don't think there's any other sport that's like, you got to look a certain way when you compete, you know? So for me, it's a challenge, and it keeps you in the gym. It keeps you, you know, just motivated in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's another good part of it is kind of knowing yourself and what motivates you. You know, if you like you said, you're a Leo, so you've probably got that slightly competitive nature. So knowing that about yourself, you know, like, am I willing to make some serious sacrifices to be the best, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, or just to push myself that far? And for me, I wasn't quite on board with it that much, but it was really good to have a clear goal. Because I will say that, like, when you get up there, you know, you know what the goal is clearly, like they've laid it out for you. So it does help in that sense that you know exactly what you're working towards.
It sure is. And I love when I hear people like never thought about doing it and they do it. They really just love it. And you learn a lot about nutrition as well along the way. I definitely wouldn't be the person I am if I didn't compete in bodybuilding. And now I know the things that you need to do in order to not only look fit, but actually be healthy. When you're younger, you eat whatever. I used to eat whatever running track, and I still had a great body, you know, as far as appearance wise. But, you know, I was young, and no way I would be able to survive doing that diet or living that lifestyle. Being healthy, I would not be healthy today if I didn't do bodybuilding.
Yeah, and that's true. It does teach you a lot about nutrition and understanding nutrition. What is protein? What are carbs? What are fats? What do they do for your body? Like, why do you need them? And when is the most appropriate time to have them? I wouldn't say, like, for the average person, I don't think they need to know quite as much as a bodybuilder does, because when you're a bodybuilder, it really does matter when you eat certain foods, how many grams, like that kind of thing. It comes down to that. So for the average person, it might be information overload, but for someone who gets into bodybuilding, myself included, like I really did start to look at food differently, a little bit more as fuel and a little bit more, you know, including my micronutrients and my vitamins, my minerals, and not just macros either. Because I think it can definitely swing. Like, there are people out there that like prep on, they make it happen, but I would say they're not probably eating the most health dense food.
Oh yeah, most definitely. There's so many like trends out there too, where I'm just like, clients will always bring it to me like, oh, the whole like, I don't even know what the trend was called, but people were eating like junk food like once a day, like all these like just junk, like burgers, fries, cereal, like all this stuff, and they would still look good in the gym. I'm like, okay, what does your butt work look like? Like, you know, yeah, you may eat that junk for a day, but what are your numbers, you know? And for me, it's more than just bodybuilding, because I do have, you know, health condition or diseases that I need. It's called PCOS, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So it's it is a disease, and it's mainly combated with like your hormones. So I'm not just doing this to look good. It's never been that for me. Like I said in the beginning, it was always to feel really healthy and feel physically fit. But now I get to feel and know that I'm healthy inside by the things that I'm choosing to eat.
And I'm curious what your take is to that point as a coach, because from what I saw in my own experience, I started looking at, like, I got very, very obsessed with my image to the point where, like, I developed eating disorders. I wouldn't go out to social situations. Like, I lost my confidence. And I think that's probably more common than we know in the bodybuilding industry. And I'm really curious. It makes me really happy to hear you say, like, yes, of course it is a physical aesthetic sport, but like you personally are doing it to make sure your actual body is healthy, right? So it's not just about the look. So I'm curious, as a coach, what you've seen with, especially women, how they are managing, you know, like the mental health side of this as well, and the internal physical health, not just the outside look.
I knew there was issues with body images because I never had them in my life as far as like looking wise. Obviously, we all want to look like a superstar or celebrity, but not physically looking at myself and hating it. And I did develop that. So it is common. I think, like you said, more than probably 70% people probably deal with this, and maybe even the number's higher because you're not really, even though I knew I need to eat healthy, but that's not your main goal. Your main goal is to look good, like to look like this. So you're constantly looking at yourself every single day. I don't care how strong of a person you are, it's gonna wear on you after a while, and especially if you don't do good in a show and you're like, or you start developing like dysmorphia. I actually developed some of that too, but I knew early on, like, hey, I'm not myself. Like, I felt mentally like drained. I felt like something was different about me. And I noticed, like, I'm always obsessed looking in the mirror. I think I'm fat. I keep saying that I'm fat. You know, these words that I don't say anymore because I'm like, you're not fat. Like, you're just different from your stage look. And I had to really develop, like, hey, stage is extreme. Like, if I'm not competing currently, but I would never want to look like that on my regular everyday life. I only want to look like that on stage. So I really had to tell myself, this is extreme and this is a normal, healthy person's body. You're going to have body fat. Body fat is healthy.
It's normal.
You know, so it's normal. And I try to tell that to my clients because I know they will deal with it, because how can't you deal with, you know, that sort of thing? And I try to tell them, you know, the things that I went through as far as my experience, like being isolated from my family, you know, really not celebrating the good things in life because you're just obsessed with getting on stage. You want to compete. So I dealt with that probably for about 3 years. I was depressed, had anxiety. I wasn't myself, looking at myself in the mirror. And even internally, I wasn't myself, you know, and it's because of bodybuilding. It really did transform a great presence in my life, but also bad things in my life early on as well. So I think coaches need to be aware when they're getting clients that they're going to deal with this, and let them know, like, this is how you combat it. Don't isolate yourself. Eat the burger. Try to really teach them healthy habits. And when I tell them, I just tell them, hey, like, I would binge eat and I would get so sick. It's not healthy to do that. So you're living a lie. You're telling people I'm healthy and I'm fit, but you're binge eating. Like, come on, this is not what you're spreading, you know? And it's something that I realized I was doing early on, you know, 7-8 years ago. I'm like, I'm so fit, I have abs, but I'm like binge eating as soon as I'm off of Instagram, you know? And I knew it was a problem.
I'm so glad you shared that, and thank you for being so open about that, because that was my biggest, well, at the time, that was my biggest issue when I was in it, right? But now that's one of my biggest feelings about the bodybuilding industry. I don't want to say like that people are like putting on like a fake front, but like when you're a bodybuilder, and especially if you're one of the best in the world, I imagine that you don't want to share, oh, by the way, I struggle with binge eating, and like, yes, I look like this on stage and I'm super proud and everybody's like so impressed, like, why would you want to tell them I'm also like struggling with disordered eating? Or
I think so. I think people should express, and I think that's why a lot of people will come to me, and I will be so honest because I want people to know they're normal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they might look like that, and like, how'd you get there? You must never cheat on your diet. I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I binge eat in the beginning. Obviously, I am very honest how I live my life now. I don't binge eat. I, don't count my macronutrients because I feel like that's like a prison in itself. Like what I'm eating is healthy, and I can do that because I know you need to have your vegetables, your protein, you need to have some carbs, you need to have healthy fat. So when I eat, I don't track anything. This is healthy, and I know it's healthy, and I'm going to eat to be satisfied, but not overindulge. Like, when we do on Thanksgiving, I try to tell people, like, this is a lifestyle and make it that, not where you're tied to numbers, not where you're thinking you have to be fit all year long. It's a season for everything.
Yeah. And exactly, like, that's not sustainable at all. Like, and some people like you're like, I don't need to look stage ready 24/7. It's not realistic. And we're talking like body fat wise for a woman, what is it for figure, like 9-10%?
Probably lower, like around, I try not to ever do my numbers because I didn't want to be, like I said, I knew I can develop certain obsessive personalities or kind of addictions. So I would never like, oh, this is my body fat. And then I would try to get better than that. But one time I did, I think I was around like 7% body fat. And then once I knew that, I knew I didn't never want to check it again because I would be, oh, what else can I get? Can I get lower? Can I look like this? I have that personality, and I think that's why I was able to do so well, is because you have to be obsessed with it. It has to become an addiction per se, as far as how extreme things can get when you're in bodybuilding. But you have to eating and having whatever, you're having these things that you need to allow yourself to have. I love junk food, I don't eat it every day, but there's always a time where I'm like, okay, it's okay to have it today.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the two things that you touched on. Like, if you're going to, anybody can compete, but if you want to win, or if you want to get your pro card, make it to an elite level, like, it's kind of, I don't like to use the word obsession, but like, it's going to probably feel that way. But also knowing
it has to be that way, because I can't even really put it into words, but it is beyond obsession. Like, every day you're always thinking about this goal. There's so many things you got to check off every single day, and everything has to be perfect. It really does.
Literally your entire life during prep, especially probably the last month or so up until your show date, has to be so precise. And I think that's what I struggled with. It was like, I felt like I couldn't enjoy social situations. My relationship with my husband was strained for sure. And I think that was when I personally made that decision of like, this sacrifice I'm not willing to make because I don't want it enough. I don't want it enough. And so if you want it enough, you're probably willing to do it, but I wasn't.
So I think there's a good way to deal with it, but you have to be coached on the level of making it a lifestyle. And like you said, you weren't willing to do those spices, and I was willing to do some of them. Some of them I regret the sacrifices that I had to do, but it is definitely something you have to know, like, it's going to be tough on everyone, not just yourself.
Yes, that's such a good point. It's not just you, because you need so much support when you're in prep.
You need so much help.
Like, literally everyone around you, whether it's your friends, your spouse, your family, your coach, like, that was something that I realized too, was anybody that, and what's frustrating too, like, there would be the people out there, like my friends or coworkers, where it was like, come on, just eat this, or like, just have this. Don't you want it? Don't you want it? And you're like, oh my God, I want to kill you right now. Like, it's the last thing I need. And like, I think it's people just don't realize, like you said, like how extreme you have to be. And having that support is just crucial. And really, I think it's really important to like check in with yourself and your own mental health, making sure you're still handling things okay. Like, physically and mentally, especially, like, because I think you can get very caught up in it and very like just swept up in how intense it is.
I agree. Even my last show, like years of competing at the highest level, you know, I turned pro in 2011. So 2011, 2000 to 2018. So it was intense for all those years, like beyond intense, you know. So even last year I had an episode as far as, like you said, you got to check in with yourself and see how you're doing with this, you know. And that's why I decided to take some time, because I wasn't okay. Like, I was just like too obsessed.
Yeah.
You know, obviously you have to be some type of level obsessed with this. You're doing things over and over every single day. You're not caring what else is going on in your life. You're just knowing that you have to do these things. But where I was just too fatigued, too tired. Mentally, I didn't want to, like you said, that point where like this is becoming way too hard on my mental aspect, as far as just needing a break, you know. Just it's very hard when you're, you know, even if you're at a high level or not, it's still hard as far as the mental. You have to be prepared. You have to have people that are willing to check on you and to understand. Like, luckily I've been surrounded by, you know, people that understand what I have to go through. So I never had that temptation, you know, the last 6-7 years, because they understood this was like really important for me to do. And they would check on me. They would know, like, my husband would know and look at me like, okay, she needs a break today. Let's go to the park and walk our dog. You know, let's not even work out today. There's some days he's like, okay, you're not working out today. I know you're physically tired. Let's go to the movies and let's just, you know, make it a fun day today.
Yeah. You got to give yourself that recovery time. It's so important. And again, I'm glad to hear someone at your level preaching that, because other people need to hear it. I mean, you need to hear it, right? When you're competing, other people that are looking up to you should hear that too, because they're going to value what you're saying and trust what you're saying. So it makes me really happy that you're setting that example of, like, yeah, sometimes you need a break.
Yeah, and I would tell my clients, they'll want to compete or, you know, impress me as far as like, I'm going to compete the show, I'm going to keep going. And I'm like, no, you need to sit down somewhere, reconnect to your family, your children, your husband, or whatever it is, you know, boyfriend. You need to reconnect in that sort of balance, to have balance. And I really preach to them overly about balance in their life. I'm like, hey, you need balance. Like, you're becoming a little bit obsessed with this. Like, make sure you're checking with your mental aspect. And I always will tell them, hey, it's always going to be your choice if you're going to step on stage, but I'm going to tell you, I can see that you need a break and you need like 6 months to recover. So please take it. And eventually they'll listen, and then they say, hey, I didn't realize I needed a break until you told me. Even that I didn't want to take a break. I know I felt so much better. So
the journal that I made, the FNL Journal, that like pretty much all came out of my experience in the bodybuilding industry and what I went through. And I wanted to give women like a tool that, you know, if they didn't have a coach or they don't have someone else checking in, at least on their own, they can, you know, still work on their fitness goals, still work on their nutrition, but making sure that their lifestyle, their mental health, their emotional health is balanced too. Because that was my biggest thing, is my physical health, in a sense, my physical health was at the best it ever was. I was my leanest, I was working out a lot, but my mental health was shit.
I don't think there was a time where I was both. I have always felt a little bit of a gap between those two.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially in the off season. Obviously, you want to make sure to like get back in check. I'm curious for you, what's like the next thing for you? What are you working on?
Yes, I have a lot of things that I'm working on as far as like just progressing in the world of bodybuilding. I will be having an app that comes out, so it's like a membership towards January, where you can get all my workouts and daily routine. So this will be for the average person that wants to get healthy and fit but be able to follow my recommendations on what they'll need to train like.
Awesome.
And then I'm also actually working on a podcast myself because I have lots of stuff to say.
Yeah, of course.
So I look forward to doing that. So I'm just really trying to just be out there more and just give more of like, fans what they need.
Yeah, that's so great. And yes, I would absolutely love to be on your podcast and chat some more. Why don't you just tell everyone where they can reach you in case they don't already follow you or already know?
You can reach me at iCandyFitBeauty on Instagram, also iCandyFitBeauty on Twitter, and I do have a Facebook page that you can reach me at the same place, iCandyFitBeauty. Please feel free to ask me any questions. I'm very open book, so.
Are you currently taking on clients for coaching still, or are you booked, or are you kind of moving towards different things?
I will be taking about 5 more clients this upcoming year into the summer. I kind of might be like, you know, slowing down on my coaching for clients as far as stage-wise, because I am doing personal training as well here in Houston, so I'm pretty busy and I don't want to like wear myself out. I still want to keep my life balanced per se. So
well, thank you so much. This was it's just so nice to talk to somebody who's got so much experience in this industry, and I really appreciate, again, like you sharing so intimately about your experience and, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that stuff. And I'm sure that our listeners are going to be very excited to hear this. So thank you again, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.